Stay connected. Make sure you hit the subscribe button.
I have 7:02 p.m. You try to continue to let people in as I see them in the waiting room, but we are ready to get started. Good evening, everybody. April 6th of 2021, City of Cortland Common Council meeting. We have a couple of public hearings before we get started. Our first public hearing is on the community impact of the 2016 CDBG infrastructure grant that provided funding for replacement on the Clinton Avenue water main. This is the second time we are having this public hearing. We had it last meeting as well. So the public hearing is officially open. Is there anybody present that would like to speak? And if you would like to speak, I would like you to give me your name. You can raise your hand virtually. You can raise your hand on the screen, which means we need to see you. But anybody that would like to speak for the public hearing on the community impact of the 2016 CDBG infrastructure grant, this is providing funding for the replacement of the Clinton Avenue water main. And we're going to admit a couple more guests. We're going to give it some time. Second call, anybody present to speak? The community impact on the 2016 CDBG infrastructure grant that provided funding for the replacement of the Clinton Avenue water main. And in between, so there has been some concerns, people who are not aware. If you've not heard in past council meetings, we're undergoing a major reconstruction on Clinton Avenue, and about 0.8 of a mile all the way from the Pomeroy intersection, actually, including the bridge over the west branch of the Tiafneoga, all the way down to Main Street. And a couple of years ago, railroad redid the tracks that go across Clinton. Last year, working on water mains. We tore up sidewalks, put down temporary pavements over the sidewalks, with the intention of finishing those when the project is closer to done. And water mains, a lot of older infrastructure being replaced and helping us avoid costly failures that could potentially happen if we do not take care of our infrastructure. Third and final call, first public hearing, community impact of the CDBG infrastructure grant provided funding for the replacement of the Clinton Avenue water main. Hearing none, seeing none. We'll call the first public hearing officially closed. Moving on to number 2. Second public hearing on extending the mayor's term to 4 years. Public hearing is officially open. Is there anybody present who would like to speak on the potential to make the term for the mayor in the city of Cortland 4 years instead of 2? Point of information, that would not happen this fall. If council chooses to bring it forward, it would be a referenda for the general public. The general public would vote this fall, and then it would take effect 2 years from now, the next round of elections. So is there anybody present that would like to speak regarding the extension of the mayor's term from 2 years to 4 years? I'm doing some shuffling. And let's make it last call. Any discussion? Anybody interested in speaking? This is the public hearing on extending the mayor's term in the city of Cortland from 2 years to 4 years. And if anybody would like to speak publicly, I'm receiving a message, but I'm not sure the person wants to speak publicly. All right, we're going to call the second public hearing officially closed. Our third and final public hearing for the evening, the opportunity to extend council person's term to 4 years. City council members are currently at 2, and another proposal to potentially make council members' terms 4 years. Public hearing is officially open, and anybody present that would like to speak. All right. I'd like to recognize Connie. Is it Connie Sorrells? Am I saying that right? And Connie, if you're able to unmute yourself. Connie, can you hear me? All right. I will paraphrase. Against mayors and council members' term being changed to 4 years. If elected officials are doing a good job, the voters will re-elect them. And there's a little bit input about at the federal level how there's been some 4-year terms, and well, maybe that speaks for itself. So we'll leave it at that. All right, we will call the public hearing officially closed. And now at 7:10 p.m. we can officially call the City of Cortland Common Council meeting to order. It is April 6th of 2021. I'm going to try to mute everybody and ask you to all please rise if you're able and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Next up, we've got public comments. If anybody would like to speak, you can do the virtual wave if you're familiar with how to raise your hand on the screen, or if your camera is on, feel free to give me a wave of your arm. Public comments need to be directed to council directly. We ask that they be limited to a maximum of 3 minutes in length and that they deal with issues that directly impact the city and that city council has the opportunity to potentially have impact upon. Floor is open for public comments. Is there anybody present that would like the privilege of the floor?
Yeah, Sheila. Sheila has her name. Sheila Cohn, Mayor.
Oh,
Yes, this is me.
Sheila.
So I submitted an application on behalf of the Cultural Council to host an arts rather than arts and wine festival on Main Street on the first Saturday in August. And I did want to get some feedback. I wanted to know whether Main Street would be broken up at that time and what feeling people have about it. We did interview a number of business owners who seem very eager to have this go forward because they're really hurting for business and feel it would be an advantage. What else? I think what we're going to try to do is involve the business owners more and really try to bring business there, to do a direct outreach for the businesses. So I do want to get some feedback, and I look forward to hearing from the council and other members of the community.
Very good. And I plan on giving you a call so we can discuss this further.
Okay,
Because as we discussed a couple of weeks ago, I want to make sure that I have a clearer understanding of how it would be structured. So Sheila, you and I can catch up
sure.
later this week or early next week.
Okay.
Hey, Mayor, would it be appropriate for us to reply to what she just asked briefly?
Not now.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. Sheila, generally speaking, I'm in favor of this. I look forward to seeing the details and we can hash those out, but I think I am in favor of the idea as a concept. So, all we have to do is the devil's in the details and let's work that out. And that's where I stand.
Okay, we also, by the way, have access to that parking lot behind the McNeil building. That's an alternative, but it's pretty depressing back there. So. Thank you, Bruce, for your input.
You're welcome.
Good. Is there anybody else present that would like to speak during public comment? Katie, did you want to chime in?
I just wondered if maybe Sheila could share her contact information if she wants the public to reach her. That would be good.
So I'm particularly interested in the folks that are on this Zoom meeting, who hold, would have a stake in this, like Nick, Govey, etc. So scohen3@twcny.rr.com. I can repeat that. scohen3@twcny.rr.com.
I like the idea as well.
Very good. And I believe that is it in terms of public comments. So we're going to move on to ward reports, starting with the first ward, Kat McCarthy. Lead us off.
Well, good evening. It's been relatively quiet in the first ward. I have heard from a resident or two who are still concerned about some of the activity up on Ridgeview Ave, both with the solar project and just some of the construction that's happening around it. And as the snow starts to melt, we find all the things that were hiding under the snow for quite a long period. So I have heard some concerns and questions about just the litter as well, particularly over by the armory. So that's something I'll be following up on as well. And I think that's, and the other thing is that we are starting to look at the possibility of another community read for May. So more information will be coming out later with that.
Outstanding. Thank you. Second ward.
Things are waking up in the second ward. People are out and about more. We're seeing fewer masks. We're seeing more gatherings. We're hoping people are getting their vaccinations because everybody certainly wants people to be able to gather safely, but it's still making people nervous. And we are hoping that people, renters and homeowners will pick up the trash that they find in their yards. Like Kat said, the snow melt has revealed quite a lot that we really don't enjoy looking at. And I had one constituent who would like us to revisit our parking policy. And so I'm hoping we can do that in the future. It's going to be really nice this week, you guys. It's going to be in the 60s all week long. And that's exciting. And I hope everybody gets out and enjoys the warm weather.
Hope you didn't just jinx it. Third ward.
Well, that's a perfect lead in for me, Katie, because I just took another walk this evening before the meeting, and I also had some trash complaints. I want to thank the code for following up on those fairly quickly and taking care of the folks, knocking on the doors for the people that didn't want to be responsible. I will say that the neighborhood looks better already than it did 2 weeks ago, and I appreciate all the folks and the property owners out there that are, picking up that trash out of the flower bed you haven't gotten to yet, or the street that you didn't put it there, but it's there. And I appreciate everyone that's doing that, and it's already looking better than it did just 2 weeks ago. So I think we're on the right track. And I also want to wish Captain Casterline the best in his retirement, along with our retiring Deputy Fire Chief Pierce. I want to wish both you fellows all the best in retirement. You've earned it, and go and enjoy it. And that's it from the 3rd Ward.
Very good. 4th Ward.
Couple of calls this past couple of weeks, some student housing that had overflowing trash. Situation cleaned up, so that was taken care of. Other than that, it's very quiet in the 4th.
Very good. Jackie Chapman in the 5th.
Good evening, and it's been relatively quiet. Haven't really been hearing from any of the neighbors around, but just want to reiterate, as we're out, as everybody is out and starting to walk around your own yards and your neighborhood, just do a little picking up. Every little bit helps, and it gets the neighborhoods looking more spick and span.
Outstanding. 6th Ward. Bill Carpenter.
All quiet in the 6th Ward. I know, Rick, I talked to you today regarding that speed zone, still working on that. I guess the slowdown with DOT, still with COVID, so we're still working on that issue. Hopefully it'll get resolved soon. Thanks, Rick, for all your work on that.
You're welcome, Bill.
And Troy in the 7th.
Just a few things, just to remind everybody, I talked earlier that the construction on Clinton Street's begun. It's going to be a nightmare for a while, but it'll be well worth it. So please take alternate routes. Obviously, as you mentioned, it's going to go from the Clinton Street Bridge, Pomeroy, all the way up to Maine. I don't know if anybody's been following, but it looks like we're going to get a new suicide hotline, which is certainly was needed. It should be getting voted on here soon, and hopefully we'll have more information on that coming up. Maybe Brian can look into it, keep people posted, or I certainly will try. It's going to be 877. Looks like they might kick it off in July. Other than that, I'd like to add an agenda item. I don't know if you want me to bring it up now, Brian, or after you get started, however you want me to do it.
Go ahead. Throw it out there now, please.
I'd like to do agenda item number 22. Get the basketball courts open back up.
Gotcha.
And also I'd like to see what we can do next month to get the parking on Hubbard Street on the agenda.
Very good. So we'll look at placing that on the agenda for next meeting. And in number 22 will be discussion about city parks basketball courts.
Thank you.
And then 8th Ward, Tom Michaels.
8th Ward, it sounds like everybody's dealing with trash this time of year, and it certainly the 8th Ward is not going unscathed. I do want to thank Tom Tobin and our code office for being proactive, solving an issue on Bartlett Ave. Also, I want to thank Sydney Hartnett for trying to keep the diner going during these hard times. Unfortunately, it looks like we're going to be losing an icon of the city of Cortland, and hopefully they'll find an owner that's willing to take that over. They're certainly going to be missed, and our city council has also held several meetings there over the past several years. Also, we did resolve an issue regarding a dumpster. I want to thank the owner of CVS for being proactive, and also the manager as well for getting that resolved in a timely manner, and I also assisted in the cleanup. Something that I don't think any of us were aware of until it happened on Easter Sunday is that I want to thank our fire department for bringing the Easter Bunny around to some of the families and kids throughout the neighborhoods. They certainly touched the lives of some in my neighborhood, and the kids were very, very surprised to see the Easter Bunny. I think they were a little shocked how big it was, but still they were very surprised. No, that's all I have for our ward report. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Tom. Mayor's report. Let's see, a couple of items going to echo what has already been said with regard to trash. And I think it's worth noting, though, that a lot of it, it's not littering. It's not necessarily trash. As I look around, I can identify what I would call recyclables that have gone a little bit wayward. And we can think back, there's been some fairly windy days, and those recycling bins, when they're overstuffed, sometimes the ones on top act more like tumbleweeds. But it'll take a little bit of everybody would be the best thing in terms of us being able to clean up our neighborhoods. But good news, I believe a couple of people from council are going to help. And I've reached out and had reached out from a couple of community groups, organizations that are interested in helping out with the community cleanup. So some of us are familiar with the big event from SUNY Cortland. We do not, that will not take place this year. That's been where they've been able to help out on properties for some of our residents. And unfortunately, at this point, that's not recommended. However, we do have interest from SUNY Cortland students and a couple of others in the community. And the idea is that we've had a traditional cleanup either late April, early May, and we've done the same for the last couple of years, this past year notwithstanding, in November as well. So the hope is that we'll have some people willing to volunteer. Public Works helps out by supplying bags and latex gloves. We ask people to keep safe, so stay out of the roads, don't go on private property, but basically in the right of way, sidewalks and other areas, being able to help out by cleaning up. Looking to target a date at the end of April to try to do this. So in addition to our daily cleanups, as we're taking care of our own space, there's some public spaces that definitely can use a little TLC. And we'll be asking for people who are willing to volunteer to come out and just spend an hour or two cleaning up some wayward recyclables. And that's going to help beautify our city. I'm going to ask council to add an executive session at the end of the meeting. And there are two main topics: update on contract negotiations, that is plural, and then discussion of contracts with individuals. Not anticipating action after the executive session. So with council's permission, I'd like to add the executive session at the end. And also have a request from the city clerk. We have a gentleman who is visiting us, and if I am mispronouncing the name, I apologize, Norman Porticello. And he is looking for permission to park a vehicle down in front of City Hall, I believe, looking for council permission. I don't think that would take a long discussion if we could make that agenda item number 23. And does that meet with council approval?
Yes.
Yes.
Very good.
Yes.
Got some thumbs up. I think we're in a good place. Moving on to minutes from our last meeting. Motion to consider filing the minutes from the last common council meeting. Katie Silliman, second. Jackie Chapman, discussion. Are there any concerns regarding our minutes from the last meeting? Hearing none, seeing none. Everybody in favor of filing the minutes as is, please say aye and give us a wave. Council members?
Aye.
Very good. And council members, please remember, make sure your microphones are on when it's time to vote. That's the minutes. Agenda item number 1, resolution to approve the special event application for the Relay for Life event Saturday, October 2nd of 2021, Suggit Park from 6:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. Motion to consider. Troy Beckwith, second. Bruce Teitler, discussion. This is Relay for Life. And the events that they've had the Luminaria, which is, I believe, what this will be. My gosh, they've been a tremendous asset, not just in our community, but communities throughout our state, throughout our country, in the fight against cancer. Council, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Carries. Agenda item number 2, resolution to accept, recognize, and appropriate the following donations to the Youth Bureau. And much thanks to Mason and June Moranis. And it's a donation in memory of Franz Hokar, who passed away, the former Youth Bureau director. Motion to consider.
I'll make the motion.
Bruce Tyler, second. Tom Michaels. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Carries. Number 3, discussion on the water and sewer lateral program. I'm going to leave this off, and then Nick and anybody else that would like to weigh in, by all means, jump in. So if you have a computer and you're semi-computer savvy, we do have a link that is on the agenda so people can go right to it. But we have a grant from the state, and we've covered this a couple of times, but I cannot stress enough the importance of keeping our infrastructure in good shape and the cost when you have a surprise failure. Speaking from personal experience in something like a sewer lateral, it's going to cost a couple thousand. However, we have a grant that will cover the replacement of sewer water laterals for people who qualify. And in order to receive an application, Toma Development, who is basically the city planner, we have a great relationship with Toma. They're located on Tompkins Street. Their phone number is 753-1433. I'll repeat that again. But you can apply if you don't have access online. Give Toma a call, 753-1433. We're looking for people that fall within the low to moderate income. Maximum income, so people that qualify. Household number of members, if it's one or, I guess you can't say fewer, $40,500 in terms of income. If it's a household of 2 people, $46,300. If there are 3 in the household, maximum income of $52,100. If there are 4 in the household, $57,850, and it goes all the way up to 8 or more. But if you have, if you meet the income threshold, if you're underneath that and you're concerned about your sewer lateral, we highly encourage you to apply because the city will replace it at no cost to the property owner. Let me repeat that. No cost to the property owner. And when I replaced mine a couple of years ago, it was well over $5,000. So this can be a fairly expensive fix. And it's not something that when it happens can wait. Anybody want to weigh in? Discussion on the lateral program. Mr. Parker.
I've had a few phone calls in the clerk's office. People who do not have computers have already called me to ask about the program. Is there any way we can put some information like down at the bottom of the stairs like we do with everything else for the clerk's office for people to be able to grab a hold of, get a hold of Toma that way?
Absolutely. We'll print up a couple copies of the flyer and put them downstairs. We've got
I appreciate it. Thanks.
Very well done flyer that we can share with the public. Looking to help out homeowners, property owners, make sure that we're keeping things in pipes moving cleanly.
Brian?
Yes. Katie?
I just want to tell people that our water and sewer system is old. Cortland was, I think, incorporated in 1900. The originals that you have under your property are made of clay, which can crumble or break, and you're responsible for those. So whether or not you're worried about your laterals now, this is an opportunity to get them replaced and not ever have to worry about them if you fit those guidelines. So please call the city or Toma directly. Sorry, Ray.
Very good. And if I was not clear, Katie, thank you for saying that this is typically a responsibility of the property owner. So this is an unusual opportunity where we can assist property owners. Otherwise, when this program is done after this year, it's going to be up to the property owner, and that can be expensive. Thank you, Katie. Agenda item number 4. We've got a couple of steps that are happening here. So this one is just a resolution to lift the hiring freeze within the fire department. Motion to consider. Bruce
So moved.
Teitler, second. John Bennett, discussion. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Carries. So this leads to number 5, consideration of a resolution to promote a fire captain to the position of Assistant Fire Chief 1. Motion to consider. Bill Carpenter, second. Katie Silliman, discussion. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Carries. Agenda item number 6, consideration of a resolution to promote a firefighter to the position of fire captain. Motion to consider. Troy Beckwith, second. Bill Carpenter, discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Carried. Agenda item number 7, resolution to hire an entry-level firefighter. Motion to consider. Troy Beckwith, second. Bill Carpenter, discussion. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Carries. Agenda item number 8, resolution to lift the hiring freeze for the City Police Department. Motion to consider. Bruce
So moved.
Teitler, second. Tom Michaels. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Carries. And then agenda item number 9, resolution to promote a police lieutenant to the position of Deputy Chief of Police. Motion to consider. Troy Beckwith, second. Katie Silliman, discussion. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Carries. Agenda item number 10, resolution to promote a police sergeant to the position of police lieutenant. Motion to consider. Bill Carpenter, second. Troy Beckwith, discussion. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Carries. Agenda item number 11, resolution to immediately hire a new police officer to fill the vacancy left by the retirement of former Police Chief Catalano, with a credentialed candidate to reduce overtime costs associated with covering the vacancy. Motion to consider. John Bennett, second. Bill Carpenter, discussion. Chief Sandy, we're talking about a lateral move. Somebody fully trained.
Yes, sir. I'm going to be looking for a fully trained officer that after a short FTO with this agency would be on the road and covering an overtime shift, which is now costing us time and a half.
How many candidates do we have in the academy currently?
Well, we had 5 candidates in the academy, and we are covering all of those vacancies at the PD with overtime due to minimum staffing requirements. However, one of the candidates has recently resigned, unable to meet the qualifications. So I am also going to be looking to fill that with a lateral. So that could be 2 police officers back into the road in a relatively quick period of time and cut back on overtime cost.
So until those 5 are in and through the academy and on the road individually, we are a little bit short-staffed.
Till roughly the end of the year.
All right.
Brian?
Council Bill.
Paul, how much money are you saving by a lateral transfer with training and everything?
We won't get a refund on the training that they're down there, but as far as ammunition costs, we won't have to be supplying. By putting somebody straight into an FTO program with a lateral, we can turn around and put them right on the road. So, I mean, even a basic entry police officer is roughly a little over $43,000. So at time and a half, you're looking at $70,000 we're going to be paying in overtime cost, and a lateral will not cost us that much.
Thanks.
Council, any further discussion? No. Hearing none, seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Agenda item number 12, resolution to recognize and appropriate proceeds from the sale of 10 vehicles from the impound lot to scrap and cost of $2,000 or revenue of $2,467.50, and move the proceeds from the revenue account to the budget line for operating equipment. Motion to consider. John Bennett, second. Troy Beckwith, discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Chief.
You're welcome, Chief. You got some big decisions to make ahead of you in the next few days.
Yes, I do.
A lot of positions to fill.
I got good people to choose from.
Good answer. Agenda item number 13, consideration of a resolution to recognize and appropriate proceeds from the sale. 13, resolution to declare DPW equipment as surplus and sold on Auctions International for competitive bidding. There is a 1998 Ford 3930 tractor, a 2007 Chevy Tahoe, 2003 International salt truck, a 1991 International dump truck, 2005 Dodge 3500 pickup with plow, 1997 John Deere loader, an 02 Ford Expedition, and an Olatech CP16 asphalt grinder attachment for a Geel skid steer, and 2 one-way plow attachments for a John Deere loader. And then there's some various scrap metal items, including obsolete plows, mounts, attachment brackets, and steel. Whew, motion to consider. Kevin McCarthy, second. Troy Beckwith, discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Hopefully that helps drive up the price, having read the list of what's available. Get out there and bid, everybody. Especially on the 91 dump truck. Number 14, resolution to lift the hiring freeze to hire a senior account clerk in the finance office to fill a pending vacancy due to a interdepartment transfer. Motion to consider. John Bennett, second. Bill Carpenter, discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Number 15, resolution to hire a senior account clerk in the finance office. So we lift the hiring freeze. This would be the hire. Motion to consider. John Bennett, second. Bill Carpenter, discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Number 16, resolution to authorize the mayor to execute an option to lease agreement with Davis Hill Development LLC to evaluate the feasibility of a solar electricity generation facility at the city's Rosen property site. Motion to consider. Jackie Chapman, second. Katie Silliman, discussion.
You want me to start this off, Mayor?
Yes, please.
All right. As we all recall, this came before us a little over a month ago. And at the time, two sites came up on our agenda. And upon speaking with a member of our Brownfield committee, we kind of come to the conclusion that the Rosen site would be the most suitable site for this kind of an operation, due to the fact that we're not going to be able to do much with that site due to its restrictions, as well as what's beneath the soil that's on top. So that's kind of why we're leaning towards the Rosen site at this point. And as we all know, that for this individual or company to get into this lease option, it's only for 1 year, tying this site up until they decide whether it's feasible for them to move forward or not. And I'm sure Matt can answer any of the other questions that may come about. And Rick would answer any legal questions.
Can we put something in there about if they decide to go forward and they put all their equipment in the ground, that should they leave, they'd have to pull that out?
In the option to lease agreement, that would not be in there, but in the actual lease agreement, if this project is feasible, that provision is in there along with the required performance bond.
Thank you.
Good. Any further questions? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And motion carries.
Thank you.
Number 17, discussion and possible consideration of a resolution to adopt the City of Cortland's public employer health emergency plan. So one of the expectations for local governments is making sure that we have put in place, in case there is a future pandemic, plans in terms of how to deal with a future pandemic. And a lot of what we were doing, copying what we're currently doing, I think we've been very effective in terms of city government and what we need to do. I believe council should have gotten a copy. This has been reviewed by department heads and also by employees. Are there any questions from council? Is there any discussion you'd like to have? And if we're pretty good with it, then my recommendation would be we place it on the agenda for the next meeting in April for approval.
Yep.
All right, hearing no questions, we'll look to have it on the agenda at our next council meeting for council vote. Agenda item number 18, setting a date for a public hearing to adopt a local law named the Plumbing Code to be placed in the code at a new number. It's Article 214. So motion, well, discussion. So public hearing, our next meeting will be what? April 20th, correct?
Mhm.
So council approval for a public hearing, April 20th. And
April 20th.
Captain Tenkate, would you like to give the public a quick description of what this is regarding?
Absolutely, Mayor. This is because last year we asked New York State to exempt us from Article 4 of General City Law, which is the Plumbing Code, which was granted to us at the end of last year. And currently our local law just says that we will follow Article 4, so we would be looking to remove that section and replacing it with our own plumbing code. We would be one of about 20 different small cities in New York that have done that.
Very good. All right, so the details about that will be available for the general public, and we will have a public hearing for people to share their thoughts if they so choose, April 20th, 7 p.m. Number 19. Rick, do we have a separate item?
Yeah, actually two for discussion for local laws. The first is to authorize a local law to authorize the or a public hearing rather to authorize the clerk to advertise for the sale of 79 River Street, city-owned property near Dexter Park. We've had this conversation, I think, before. The second local law is something that has been sitting on my desk, and I apologize, but it is amendment of the sign regulation in reaction to what we've heard from the New York Civil Liberties Union recently. So those local laws and notices will be in your packet for the next meeting.
Very good. So 79 River Street, for edification for the general public. It is adjacent to the city park, Dexter Park, and for all intents and purposes, it appears to be a portion of the park. However, legally, it is its own property, and there's a desire by the neighbor to acquire it. After much internal discussion, deliberation, it kind of juts up. It doesn't really add to the capacity of the park. It is not officially part of the park, so it does not give us difficulty in terms of the sale. And this would be a bonus across the board, we think. Rick, you had your hand up?
I do. Just according to the charter, we have had this reviewed by the Planning Commission, and they recommend the sale of the property.
Very good. All right, so we'll have those two public hearings. We will have 3 public hearings then for the next council meeting. All right, agenda item number 20, discussion regarding the $1 million the city will be receiving from the federal government this year and then slated for another $1 million in 2022. Was asked to place this on agenda. Who would like to get the conversation started? Would you like?
I will, Mayor.
Bruce,
I will. I asked this to be placed on there just because I wanted all 8 of us to have some input. I wanted to generate as many ideas as we could. I'd like to have department heads thinking about this. This is just the first of, I'm sure, many conversations. We're still getting, details in terms of what we can use it for, can't use it for. There's it's a pretty broad category. And I'm going to start it off by where I want to get into the conversation is broadband. And I had a short conversation with Bob Edwards, our superintendent of schools here in the city. And they also had some issues when they went to distance learning with multiple families not having adequate high-speed internet in their homes, and they had to direct them to different hotspots. And so I'm thinking this may be a chance for us to partnership with the school maybe and help solve some problems, not just for the adults in the community, but maybe students. So I just wanted to get that out there as part of the conversation. And I know we're a long ways from figuring out what we're going to do, but I wanted to get the ball rolling tonight, and let's lots of ideas pour in, and then we can figure out what's feasible and what's not. So that was my rationale for wanting to talk about this. So thanks for putting it on the agenda, Mayor.
Very good.
Do we know exactly what the money could be used for, Mac? Do you have that at all?
I think they said just DPW.
Oh, okay.
No, the treasury regulations that will spell out in detail and explain the 4 general uses are not yet released, Bill.
Okay.
Broadband was specifically mentioned, Bill, as something you could use it for.
Okay.
From when I attended, I sat in on a webinar with Senator Schumer, and he went through it, and then his people came on afterwards and explained in a little more detail. And so there's a lot of right now. There's a lot of latitude, but we infrastructure and broadband is certainly part of that. The latest we had that I had seen is you can help other groups, nonprofits, if they've been impacted by the COVID. And so there's a lot of different things we can do, but I'm sure we have a lot of needs within the departments too. And that's hopefully those will percolate up to the top in the coming weeks.
Good.
One of the number one complaints I get from constituents is about sidewalks. So I'd really like to see us put some more money into our sidewalk program so that we can get our sidewalks looking good around the city and so that they don't trip people up. I think that would be nice to have something that everybody felt the benefit of.
So to clarify, was that a joke that it was pretty much DPW sourced? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Slight exaggeration.
Yeah. He's trying to make Nick's day tonight, that's all.
Well, because what comes to mind for me is if, the funds will be more broadly used, possibly within the police department, some camera equipment, some of the body cam equipment. That's just.
That's a big expenditure. So that's, yeah. If it can be used.
Yeah. But you know what, Jackie? Thank you, because this is the point where we need to get everything out there and then we can figure out going forward. I don't think right now there's any such thing as a bad idea from any members on this council in terms of what we might do with that. So I appreciate that.
Right. Well, it's just basically what you said. It's brainstorming a giant list. And then eventually we'll break it down to necessity and most needed and where it would be most beneficial and useful. But you start out with your giant list.
Right.
Your wish list.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, this is a sort of a once in a, maybe not, maybe we'll get more of this, but $1 million this year and $1 million next year. That's been a long time since we've gotten, if ever, we've gotten that kind of money from the federal government to be able to use towards a lot of different things that weren't nearly as, usually it's very, very specified. This hasn't been, we'll know more in the coming weeks for sure, as Max said, but so far it hasn't been really, really specific. It's been more general, COVID related. And there's a lot of things we could attach to that.
Thank you, Jackie. I think the mayor has called for lists from all department heads, and I think everybody has submitted them. Certainly the police department has.
Bruce, you may be interested. I'm reading the state budget as it's being voted on right now. They just passed a provision in the state budget that mandates that for low-income families, broadband can cost no more than $15 a month.
That's good to hear. But that's I still have a lot of questions. How fast is that? There's broadband and then there's broadband. There's enough so you could operate one device, and then there's enough that you can operate if you have 4 kids needing it at the same time. So I'm glad to hear that though, Mac. That's a great start. Thank you.
So, and just to, not to temper enthusiasm, but just to make sure we're bringing into perspective the discussion that we've had internally with department heads, and I've apprised council of this, is that we did a lot of things last year that were Band-Aids. Some departments took some heavy hits in terms of what they were able to do. Some of those things we're not going to be able to get back, but there are some things that we need to do to make sure that we are not experiencing other difficulties moving forward. So, the purchase of PPE equipment, for example, that money was not budgeted. Nobody expected the need to buy masks and plexiglass and gloves and sanitizer. However, we were able to shift resources and adjust what our priorities were. The COVID testing in the wastewater department, making sure that we were checking and being able to see when we've seen spikes. This has been beneficial to the community as a whole. And I would ask council that the first priority be that we fix what we shifted last year and then reassess and evaluate in terms of this year what we need to do. So that million does not equate to $1 million. You know, the discussion earlier about the sewer lateral program in terms of this year's budget, we've got a significant chunk of our budget that's dependent on us being able to actually do that work so that we are reimbursed by those state funds. And if we are not getting to where we need to be, well, we can anticipate some budget deficits, not just from 2020, but for 2021 as well. So when this happened last year, we took some very draconian steps, and it was difficult. You know, in particular, our youth bureau took it on the chin. Public Works, we furloughed a lot of people that impacted their ability to pave. Some of these things we can't get back. You know, we can't open up the pool or the beach twice, but there's going to be other things that John and his staff will need to manage to make sure that people are utilizing facilities safely. There may be other opportunities that maybe we should invest in. We did fall back essentially a year in terms of paving. We can't get that all back in 1 year. We only have so many in terms of personnel. But if we're able to start making up where we fell off and we make that a priority, I fully anticipate that we'll be continuing to move the city forward in a very productive manner.
And you know, and Brian, and Mac, you can correct me if I'm wrong too on this. We don't have to do this quickly. We have, I think, until 2024 to invest that money in whatever we decide to do. So it's not something that we have to decide quickly. I just think we have to do it correctly. And I look forward to working with my colleagues on the council as we make those decisions.
I appreciate that this conversation is getting started tonight. And I also appreciate that the mayor is framing things and thinking about, you know, where we might have kind of moved things around to make do and where we might be needing to think strategically. Certainly, as I look at our budgets and I look at the decisions we make, I think about how that's not just going to impact us in the coming year, but how it's going to impact the city in the coming years. So I think this is really an important decision. And while I don't have any grandiose ideas this evening for how we can spend this, I know that there are many, many worthwhile projects in our community that would really benefit our community, both, you know, in the current budget, but also, you know, looking a little bit broader and beyond the things that we haven't had the money to do. So I think this is an important conversation that we should keep continuing.
Very good. And not to temper the enthusiasm too much, but well, it's not the first time I've had to step in and use my dad voice over the last year or so. Agenda item number 21.
No, Mayor, we want your input too, Mayor. You're part of this discussion. So, you know, we seek your input. You're part of it.
Very good. I appreciate that. We're all functioning. We've been functioning very well together. I know we'll continue to do so. I have absolute faith and confidence in that. Thank you, Bruce. Agenda item number 21, COVID-19 update. So we're coming off of a weekend where there's a lot of potential in terms of people gathering, and I hope many people, myself included, were able to celebrate safely if you celebrate the Easter weekend, and if you were just enjoying the good weather. A little brisk, but we're going to have good weather this week as well. You know, we're seeing the end, but we're not to the end. And part of what I teach my athletes up at the college, you're not done until you're done. So I think it's important that we are still maintaining and doing the right things privately and publicly, individually and collectively. There's been good news in terms of number of doses of vaccinations that are coming into the county. There's updates that the general public is having more and more access, which is outstanding. And if we're watching the numbers, we are seeing the numbers in terms of infections, not just in our county, but throughout the country, becoming more manageable. And I'm hopeful that the numbers across our state, we've seen a slight uptick. I'm optimistic and hopeful that those are an exception and that's not going to be a trend upward again. So in the city, we've not changed a lot of our protocols. We are still asking for people to make appointments when they have a need to interact with city personnel on the second floor. It doesn't matter if it's the clerk's office with a birth certificate, death certificate, marriage certificate. Doesn't matter if it's parking tickets, paying taxes. We're trying to minimize contact. It keeps our employees safe, and it keeps you safe if you're coming to City Hall. So we've really been asking, and people have been, I have to say thank you, not just to our staff who have been absolutely exceptional over the past year, but also to the public for being understanding and doing the right things. So the ask, we need to continue to maintain what we're doing. And that might be a nice segue into agenda item number 22. Troy, we want to talk about basketball courts and the potential to open them up.
Yeah, obviously, I've had a lot of calls on it. I know some other municipalities that border us have opened up their basketball courts. I know there's pros and cons to it, but obviously with everything we're seeing going on with suicide and young kids, I really think it should be done. It needs to be done. Even though we're still in a somewhat pandemic, I know it's not over with, as you emphasize, and I'm aware of that, but I just really think that we need to get the park open back up for the basketball. Obviously, the restrooms won't be opened up yet. That's my take on that.
Right. And for the general public, I've received a couple of requests as well. In discussion with John McNerney, the Youth Bureau Director, and I'm maybe it's the dad voice again, but my perspective is that, again, the numbers have plateaued. It's not a continuing downward trend. I'm very optimistic, but it's because of the actions that we're taking. And as more people have access and more people are vaccinated, we're getting to that place. And, with a little bit of discussion with some other people and looking at time frame, I still am optimistic that we'll continue these trends. And my recommendation is that we keep the basketball courts closed till middle of May. Give it about another month and a half. And if we're still doing as well as we are, we'll know that's another month and a half of people who have had the opportunity to be vaccinated. But I said earlier, we all work together well. So I appreciate council's input on this. Tom Michaels.
Last week, I was contacted by the New York State tracing. I had been exposed on the 29th, and I had a lengthy conversation with a gentleman as he asking me 100 questions. That he told me that there is an upswing going on right now, and it's because of larger gatherings. It's not your small gatherings anymore. So I just wanted to add that as much as everybody wants to start opening things up, waiting a little bit longer would certainly probably benefit many of us. But I do have to admit, I was on a basketball court Sunday.
Did you dunk?
No, I had, no. I think those days are over. But there weren't that many that were out there. There was a father and son that was on the other, and there were four of us, so it wasn't a large crowd there. But of course, this was up in Cicero as well. But yeah, there are some pros and cons.
Kat McCarthy.
Yeah, I would agree that there's some pros and cons. I don't think it's a easy decision, but right now the New York State Department of Health guidance of sport and recreation still indicates that basketball remains a high risk sport. Social distancing during games is difficult. And I think that while we've had an increase in the ability for people to get vaccinated, I think that just opened up recently for a larger portion of the state or portion of the population in the state. So while I think we're heading in the right direction, I'm still not convinced that we're at a point where we really want to be encouraging that. And I understand that the youth bureau and the city staff, we have had complaints in the past when we do have people playing basketball without masks on and the contact in the parks, and we don't have the staff to monitor that, to my knowledge. So I think that's another factor is, as we get further in the season, hopefully the numbers are continuing on downward trend and we'll have a better picture at that point.
Yeah.
Brian, is John on? Can we get his input on this, please? Or
Yep,
Brian?
I'm going to go to Katie Silliman had her hand up, so I'll go to Katie and then to John McNerney.
I was going to ask you if the university's basketball courts are open.
They are closed.
Even in what my family calls the Temple of Fitness, people are not playing basketball.
The Student Life Center, i.e. the Temple of Fitness, the gymnasiums there are being utilized they were being utilized as the testing center. So they've not been open at all. And there are 2 courts outside that are inaccessible as well.
So I would feel more comfortable waiting until the majority of people who might be using those our courts, since they also live in the community. I think the idea is to wait until the students are mostly gone. And, I have 2 kids who just recently graduated from college, and they both love basketball and play basketball. And we've had a lot of conversations about this as a family. And one of them swears that there's a study that playing basketball with a mask off is safer than eating in an enclosed area. So going back to dining indoors. And I've asked him to find that for me because I'd like to look at it. But I think a big part of this is community education. And there's a lot of anxiety that's caused when people see a group of people doing something that they think is not safe for the rest of us. So that's a factor too. I am so concerned about kids' mental health, Troy. I'm right with you. I think we have to consider everybody's mental health, and if we can wait a little bit longer, even a month rather than a month and a half, a lot of the people who might use those courts will be gone, and maybe we can open them up for the little kids more safely at that time.
Well, folks, you're all making great points. This is something that me and Mayor Tobin have had a lot of conversations about dating back to the summer when we really had some issues, and in early fall when the courts are being utilized by many different participants, whether they're community members or college students. I sent an email to everybody with some of my thoughts. It's not an easy answer. I usually advocate for kids and always look out for the best interest of kids. And this is a difficult decision. It really is. I hear where Troy's coming from. I'm getting some of those same phone calls from a lot of residents from the 7th Ward. Dexter Park is a new court. It's very popular. And we have to keep in mind, for most of the people on this call, 4 or 5 weeks is not that long. It's a blink of an eye. But when you're telling a 10, 11, 12-year-old 6 weeks, it's an eternity to them, especially they've been waiting so long to play basketball. So I think hearing from most of the council members here, you realize there's pros and cons to this. I guess I wanted to put on paper some things for you folks to consider when you're making this decision, because it's not an easy decision. I wish we could just say, yes, let's open up the courts and go at it, and everybody be respectful. We're a unique community. I think I don't have to tell you folks this, but SUNY Cortland, if you think about the population that's there, there's a huge population of physical education majors, a huge population of sports management majors, a huge population of recreation management majors. A lot of those folks are very active. Something tells me in the city of Fredonia, they might not have this problem. I think their focus is on music and other education avenues. But in Cortland, and I'm a SUNY Cortland grad, we used to play at the courts all the time. And, kids like to get outside and they're anxious to do activities. So it's a challenging one. I wish I had a simple solution, but I really don't. I've done some research with other communities. Some have opened up. I think I outlined that in the email. But I think this is a call that the council has to make. And I can certainly answer any questions you might have, but it's probably not the news Troy wants to hear and the parents that have called me, but sounds like maybe waiting a few more weeks is probably the best solution.
Neil, when you're looking at the overall percentages and ratios compared to other parts of New York State, Cortland County's immunization rate is still very, very low. Or vaccine rate is very low, and meaning we have a much greater hurdle to reach herd immunity. And if we were to be jumping the gun, ignoring that fact and ignoring those facts, we could create a way for Cortland to surge again. So it just seems like we should take those extra couple weeks to be precautious.
Yeah, Mayor, Brian.
Bruce.
I agree with what you're saying, Jackie and Katie and Kat. I think we have to wait a few more weeks, as hard as that is, but there are still physical activities that folks can partake in. It's not like we're cutting off all avenues, just not the basketball courts right now. And another thing, just to throw out there, I don't know what the numbers are now currently because I haven't been given any updated data in a couple of months. But when I saw the cases from where most of the cases of COVID-19 were in the county, the vast majority of them are right in the 13045 in the city area. So I don't know if that's changed, but that adds another element to it that we're going to be asking people. They're coming into an area where that's already where a lot of COVID cases are. They're not necessarily as many out in the rural areas. They're focused here. That could all have changed in the last several months. I don't know. I haven't been able to get updated data. So I've always been a believer of taking advice from department heads. That's why we hire these folks. That's their job. And to hear John saying he thinks we should wait a little longer, just to me, that just seals the deal because you're right. John's right. There's nobody, I don't think, that speaks for kids more than John and, is willing to go up against just about any kind of opposition to make his view known in terms of doing what's right by kids. And if he's saying we need to keep things shut for a little while, I think we need to listen to John.
Well, this is a good discussion. It's an important discussion. And Troy, I'm with you. I want to open. Pre-pandemic was playing at the Idol of Fitness, as Katie called it, with other faculty and staff up at SUNY a couple times a week. But I'll sleep a lot more comfortably at night knowing that, hey, we're doing what we can to make sure we're controlling the spread the same way that we've done this for the last year. And I'm very curious looking at the numbers next week, because like I said, this past weekend, I think if we get through next week and numbers are still pretty good, maybe we do bring it back for discussion and we're hopefully able to set a date. Here's when we should open.
Yeah.
So I think we can bring this back for a discussion at the next council meeting. Agreed?
Yeah.
Yep.
Very good.
But it's the Temple of Fitness. right?
Temple of Fitness, my bad. And I'm gonna thank Dr. Porticella. Thank you for being here this evening. Thank you for your patience. If I was a little wiser, I would have asked to have you on the agenda a little earlier. I apologize. First of all, am I saying your name correctly?
Yes, Porticella is correct.
Good. Can you quickly explain to council what it is that you would like to do?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Tobin. Thank you, council members, for taking some time out of your meeting for this. I am a research manager at Cornell University in the Department of Communication. One of our projects is a 2-week NIH-funded clinical trial of messaging on cigarette packages to help smokers quit. We have 18 Cortland residents signed up for this 2-week study. We've also done we've done data collection in Rochester, Syracuse, Binghamton, Elmira, Utica. Cortland is our last stop. So we're trying to wrap things up here. And basically it involves me. The only part of this that's in person is when I have the participants scheduled throughout the day for quick 2-minute meetings with me just to pick up a package of study materials at the beginning of the 2 weeks. And then I meet with them again at the end of the 2 weeks to retrieve there's a study phone that they use and give them their gift cards at the end of the study. So I'm just asking for permission to park my vehicle in, I was thinking of Court Street near church, just because I like to, given the fact that I'll be carrying all these gift cards at the end, I like to be somewhere where there's some law enforcement around. It hasn't been a problem, but it feels nicer for me. That's it.
So the request is to be able to park 2 different days for a period of about how many hours?
It's between 6 and 8 hours. I'm not sure of the exact schedule for the days, but between 10 and 6, more or less.
Is that a weekday or weekend?
It's Wednesday of next week, the 14th, and Saturday, May 1st.
Okay, so council, let me give you a resolution. Resolution to allow Dr. Porticella to park a vehicle on Court Street and exceeding the parking limitations from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Wednesday, the 14th of April, and Saturday, was that the 1st?
Yes.
Okay, and Saturday, May 1st. Well, Saturday won't be a problem. Motion to consider. Bill Carpenter, second. Katie Silliman, discussion.
Is there hey, Brian?
Bruce and then Tom.
I certainly support what Cornell's trying to do here. Is there a way they could park in the parking lot right behind the fire station, maybe next to the church instead of on the street? You'd have achieve the same goal and still have the same proximity to what he's looking for in terms of public safety? Is that a possibility?
Dr. Porticella, how familiar are you with the city in terms of Court Street?
I'm looking at a satellite Google view right now. So I didn't realize he was asking me. That would be fine. I didn't think it would be possible to park in the fire department's parking lot, but I would be perfectly fine with that.
All right, and then Ray Parker, city clerk, got his hand up, and then city.
Well, actually, Rick as well. I'd rather have Rick go first because he's probably going to say what I'm going to say. So go ahead, Rick.
Yeah. One of my concerns about that is the employee parking lot has police cars coming and going, and I don't know that we want to clog it up with the people coming to meet with him. City court is not in session where people are showing up in court, so the front of the City Hall is wide open, and people can park there, meet with Mr. or Professor Porticella, and I think that would make it easier to come and go. But I don't want to block either the fire department's officer staff or the police with other cars clogging up that lane.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't mean that parking lot. I actually was speaking to the one next to the church. But, but I didn't realize the courts weren't in session. So, I mean, if that's not going to cause an issue, but I wasn't talking about between the police and fire. I meant more next to the church and back that way. There's all sorts of parking back there that wouldn't interfere. But if you think that's going to be fine in front, okay.
Yeah, and I was going to issue him we use the red tags, the parking tags for a 1-day parking. So I was going to issue him a 1-day parking pass. So.
Okay. All right.
Tom Michaels.
Oh, and Paul, Chief Sandy wanted to also speak to as well on this because I did speak with him about it as well.
We go to Tom and then Paul.
There are times that those spaces are full and there's times that they're all empty. We could place some cones there if that would help.
Sure.
And then Paul, any concerns? Police chief.
Sir, how big is the vehicle you're going to be using? I heard a box truck, which sounds like a U-Haul. So
Yeah, so that's what I usually used, just to look legitimate, so it doesn't look like I'm sitting there dealing drugs or anything. But I was told that having a box truck, it's like a medium-sized U-Haul truck, just branded with Cornell stuff. I can use my own vehicle if having a box truck in front of official buildings is a concern.
if you coordinate with us, we will block off the necessary spaces to fit your vehicle. And we have a camera out front. So I would also put you in a spot where a surveillance camera would cover the activity. So should there be a problem, we would have video there, but our officers are in and out of the lot all the time. So you would be perfectly safe.
Great. Who do I send like this? It's about between 20 and 25 feet. So who do I send that to?
So we've got your phone number. We can connect after.
All right.
Council, in the interest of time, is there further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None opposed.
And I have his number, Mr. Mayor, so I will coordinate with him.
Very good. Thank you, Ray.
Thank you.
Best of luck. Hopefully the study goes well.
Thanks. Thank you very much.
All right, at this point, I asked council for the opportunity to adjourn into executive session, update on contract negotiations, also discussion about two potential contracts as a motion to adjourn into executive session. We got Katie Silliman, and then we have support, John Bennett. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, we are adjourning into executive session. Do not anticipate action afterwards. We are coming back, but we do not anticipate action. And it looks like most people are already going. All right, is everybody back?
Yep.
I need a motion to adjourn from executive session. Katie Silliman, and then a second from John Bennett. All right. Is there all those in favor of adjourning from executive session, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, none. Is there any further business to come before the council this evening?
No, but next time maybe we could talk about this
Oh, good point, Katie.
next time.
Yes.
I move to adjourn.
A second.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm going to guess we're adjourned.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are adjourned. Thank you for your time and your efforts this evening.
See you guys.
See you, folks.
Good job.
Yep. Good night, everyone.
Night.
Bye, everybody.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.
Stay connected. Make sure you hit the subscribe button.